Welcome, everyone. We are so excited to have you join us today for this special workshop on finding more freedom and energy through achieving peace with food. My name is Jeanette, and I am your host and facilitator of this workshop. I partnered with intuitive eating coach Shelly Najjar of Confident Nutrition to share her powerful insights on better aligning our eating with our body and self-care needs. Before we dive in, though, I wanted to share a little bit about my own journey with food and energy and caregiving, because this is going to be you're getting a bird's eye view into coaching with Shelly, and also what it's like to have this coaching call type thing. And we're going to be doing this workshop together. And so in order for me to be present in this coaching session, I wanted to let you know a little bit about my background, so it makes a little bit more sense. So I am a lifelong caregiver. And that means that I've been caregiving in some capacity for most of my life. My mom was diagnosed with an illness when I was young. And I have struggled over the course of my life to properly learn how to take care of myself, because most of my growing up was learning how to take care of her. And so a lot of times, and Shelly, you and I have talked about this before, a lot of times that meant I was not taking care of myself at all, putting myself on the back burner, or I was thinking I was taking care of myself by doing all the diets and the exercises and all of the things, but really not really able to have the energy and the confidence I needed to get through my day. I remember there was a period of time where I was a wife, a mom, and a caregiver, which I still am, all of those things, but like I was also not really doing well with the energy piece. And so I would get through my days barely having enough energy for myself, for taking care of my children. And each day I got to the end of the day with not enough. And so it took me years to figure out how to balance between caring for myself and caring others, and finally feeling connected to myself and to the life I wanted to enjoy. And ultimately, all those struggles led me to developing resources like what we're going to be covering today with Shelly, on intuitive approaches for long-term peace with food. And of course, I believe that when you have peace with food, you end up creating the opportunity for you to have peace with yourself. So, Shelly, you're going to guide us through a step-by-step workshop today, a little bit more about your framework. Do you want to touch on your framework really quickly, or do you want to just dive in?
Yeah, we can touch on it, like kind of brief
Yeah.
intro.
Yeah, just a little intro of it, and then we'll kind of lead into it.
Sure. So this is called the tongue, body, brain alignment. It's a really simple framework just to help you figure out in any situation that you apply it in, what are some options and what might be the most satisfying. And so we'll walk through the course of this workshop. We'll walk through how to use it, what it is, different ways that you can apply it, and the kinds of information that it brings up, and the kinds of decisions that you can then make, so that you are feeling like you can save that energy in the decision making and all of that
Right.
for other things, so that deciding what to eat or figuring out, what do I do in this situation related to my food, all of that becomes simpler.
I really love this idea of doing this. When you and I were talking about this, I was like, oh, this is perfect. We're in this time of year, when we're talking about this, and it's, well, it's a busy time of year for everyone because it's the holidays. But let's be honest, like most of us are busy all the time, but especially caregivers. And so having one less decision to make, I know, is very helpful. And then I think too, it's less overwhelming, because sometimes we feel like, well, we're not making the decision. That's the problem. We need to make better decisions. And so having this, bringing this to their attention, and I look forward to walking through it with you. And then what we're going to do after we go through the workshop and you teach us more about this framework, you walk me through some processes with it. Then we're going to go through, in the self-caregiver community that I have, I asked some of our participants to pre-submit some questions. And so they had some specific real life scenarios where they struggled to figure out what is the right thing to eat. And of course, I have my own because I'm a real person too. And so you'll be helping us go through that. So I'm gonna share some of those as well. Shelly, I mentioned that you were a intuitive eating coach, but you're much more than that. Do you, as we get started with the workshop today, feel free to let us know a little bit more about your journey and what got you here into intuitive eating, and more about your work.
Sure. So again, thank you for having me. My name is Shelly, and I am an intuitive eating counselor and a nutrition mindset coach and dietitian. And I got started, typical dietitian, kind of the I will tell you what to eat way of education, and started working at a hospital. Realized that was not a good fit because all we did was tell people what to eat and then get mad at them when they didn't do
When they
it.
didn't do it.
And so I just like, this is not working. Something is wrong here. Started looking at other options, found out that health is actually way more attainable with fewer food restrictions, and then started on that path toward intuitive eating and a non-diet approach. And that led me to get my certification. And then after that, started my private practice to, teach women with a lot going on. So people like you, teach them to be able to have a healthy and joyful relationship with their food, regardless of what's going on around them.
What I love about what you just said, this like have a joyful, enjoyable relationship with food. I think like, for me, like struggled with disordered eating, eating disorder behaviors, body image issues. But even if that's not you, if that is you, this is definitely going to help. But even if you're like, that's not me, I mean, how nice would it feel to just, not have a hate relationship or a love relationship with food? It's just food, and it's a part of our being, but not something that controls our life or makes us feel guilty because we feel like we can't control anything. And so I love that idea of just, I remember when I was in therapy and saw a dietitian, one of the things that I grappled with is, do I want to have a good relationship with food, or do I want to have a relationship with people around my table instead of the food? And so I sometimes think about it like that too. But of course, that idea of just um, enjoying food and having a good relationship with it leads to that community building that you can have around a table with your friends and family and the people around you. So I really like that.
Right.
Okay, I'm ready to be your guinea pig and get started. I've already printed out I won't let you print out my thing to get started. You guys, we will be posting this in the description, and I'll also send it to you in an email, but she has this little tool for you to use to help you with this framework that she's going to teach us about. So you ready?
Yeah.
All right, let's go.
Okay. And so as I go through this with Jeanette, you're, of course, welcome to follow along. It probably works best that way when you're able to actually do it and practice it as you learn it. So, yourself, figure it out. But if you are interested in actually practicing and getting a couple of rounds in as you go through these things, thinking through some scenarios that maybe aren't as close to you, like you can practice with Jeanette's experience, you can practice with your own. It's totally up to you. But I just want to invite you to interact with this video in that way if you are interested. So the first thing I'm going to do is talk a little bit about the framework itself, how it is, like how it's set up, and then we're going to pick our scenario to go into. So are you ready to learn about the 3 parts?
I am. Let me get my notes. Okay.
All right. So the whole framework can be envisioned by 3 circles, kind of like a Venn diagram with 3 overlapping in a triangle shape. And so that's the shape that Jeanette was showing you earlier. We'll both put it up there. Okay, so you can see those 3. All right, we're going to go through what each of these circles represent and what the overlaps represent and how to use them. And it becomes really simple. So the whole framework is called tongue, body, brain alignment, or TBB alignment. And it can be broken down by those 3 parts, right? Tongue, body, and brain. So let's start with tongue. because I think that's the easiest for most people to understand what it is relatively quickly. So, ready for the tongue circle?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Tongue is really your taste preferences in this moment, or in the moment when you're going through this scenario, right? So your taste preferences in that moment. All right. And then body is the next one. Body represents the physical feelings or sensations that you experience in this moment, and what you would like to experience after you eat.
That's
So
a good
now
one.
and after, right?
And these are physical feelings.
These are physical sensations.
Yes. Which is going to be different than the next one.
Yes, exactly. And then the final one is brain. And the brain is your knowledge, your experience, your observation, the information that you bring to the present moment. And so this information is not necessarily like all true information or only facts, right? These can also be the feelings, the thoughts, the beliefs that you have, the kind of those voices that you're carrying around, the judgments, all of those things are in the
Right.
brain.
So this is where we get that, we hear that this is a good choice versus a bad choice, or this is a
Right.
good food versus a bad food.
Or the I shoulds or I shouldn't.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Gotcha.
Those are all the brain. So I think we kind of have an idea of what that is, right?
Yes.
And Jeanette, like we gave examples of the brain. Do you want to give some examples that you can think of already of information that might be in that body circle?
So when I think about the body, and like the physical feelings when you're in the scenario, like maybe as you're trying to make the decision about what to eat, and then after, I think about like, how hungry are you? Like, is your stomach growling? A lot of times I, um, do have like some physical symptoms, like almost like burning if I'm getting too hungry. Like, okay, you've had lots of coffee and nothing, nothing in there. You probably, so there's that going on. Feeling a little, um, yeah, just a little hungry, or maybe in that scenario, I'm not feeling hungry. Like maybe there's an opportunity for eating, but I'm not really feeling overly hungry. And then, of course, when I'm thinking, so I'm thinking about like a scenario, like I show up to uh, a thing at church that's like a luncheon or something, and it's like, how hungry am I? Is this? And then I think about, okay, if I eat this food, how's it going to make me feel later? Because I do have some, well, I have lots of things going on, but I do have some, like, you know, watch the dairy, or
Right,
things like
right.
that.
And so then that's a combination actually of the brain and the body.
Yes.
Right? So you want to feel in the future not gassy and bloated, probably.
Yes.
So those would be the physical, but the knowledge of like thinking through that process of
right.
which foods it is, that's the brain. So separating them, the reason I asked for this is because I think that that's really hard to separate unless we walk through this process a lot. So it's nothing like, oh, you did it wrong or anything like that. I just want to be really clear and like, okay, these are the parts, because once we get into it, it becomes kind of muddy. And so I like being able to separate them a little bit more at the beginning. And so then when we think about the tongue, taste preferences in this moment, do you have any like flavors right now? What flavor
so
or
like
something?
It was funny because I was thinking about this and I was like, it really depends on the scenario and the smells in the room and all that kind of stuff. Cause like, but if I have to like tell, typically what I tend to enjoy food wise is going to be salty. Like I love food that has salt on it. And I am not ashamed to put salt on foods that perhaps might be deemed unsaltworthy. I think salt can go anywhere. But I am a salt. I tend to like a salty. So
great. So then, in most of your moments, probably salty is going to be like a predominant taste influencer on the tongue. Also, things that might impact, sometimes we have feelings when we really want something that tastes really like savory or is
Mm-hmm.
warm, right? Like is
Yeah.
warm in our mouth, or is like familiar, right? Maybe it's
Mm-hmm.
nothing set that we can think about, but it's we want something familiar rather than like the excitement of trying something new. So
Right.
those can be tongue also.
Yes.
Um, any questions about like the breakdown of those three?
Yeah, I think like the tongue is pretty clear. I want to go back to the body one because I think that distinction is interesting. And I also wanted to bring up too. So there's been, because of my history, there's also been times where I think I shouldn't eat this because I'm intolerant to it, or you know, it's going to make me bloated or whatever. And while it may have made me bloated one time, I then just blanket that. And so I want you to talk a little bit about that kind of like you were talking about the difference between like how you want to feel later and how your brain is processing and thinking about how you think you're going to feel later. And also, this is a physical feeling, but then there's where the brain comes in too, is like, if I eat this now because, you know, I'm feeling hungry, will I feel guilty, which is going to be back in that brain. So will you kind of talk a little bit more about the separation of the body and the brain?
Yeah, sure. So I think what you're talking about truly is actually a brain out of alignment.
Mm,
So when we're separating them, that's different than saying these are all equal in
right.
emphasis, right? And so what we have on the worksheet is when it's all in alignment.
Gotcha.
When I draw it out of alignment, like when the thoughts about like if I ate this food once like 20 years ago and I got bloated, and I know that X food is quote unquote bad for me and I shouldn't be eating this food, and I'm just so bad and I really should get over it and blah 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 and all that negative history and the train's just going downhill, right?
Right.
And like going off the tracks downhill.
Right.
That is like this giant circle
I was going to
brain
say it's
with
a
teeny little
huge,
things body, and then it's just like lopsided, right?
right.
Out of alignment, not satisfying experience. As you get more used to working on this, as you correct some of the things that are pulling you out of alignment, it
Mm-hmm.
becomes a little bit more like this, and you can
Gotcha.
drift more into the center. If
Gotcha.
you're like constantly being pulled up or wherever, whatever direction you put this in,
Right.
right? If you're constantly being pulled toward the brain section, our thoughts are amazing in that they can actually create body symptoms, right? Felt symptoms. Like when we
Yes.
are nervous, because of our thoughts, because we're thinking, they're spinning out of control. Oh my gosh, I am so bad that I ate this food. Now I am never going to get out of this situation and everything is
Right.
horrible, and your stomach starts getting in knots and you get a little bit of
Mm-hmm.
heartburn and you're just feeling so tense everywhere. Yeah,
Yeah.
that may be a kind of intolerance GI maybe, but is that actually because of the food or was that because of your stress?
Right.
We don't know until
Right.
you're no longer stressed about eating that food, right?
Right.
So I would stick to things like I would rather not feel bloated, you know, and stressed, or I would rather not feel like I want to feel satisfied after I eat. If you
Mm-hmm.
don't know, say I want to feel comfortable, right?
Mm-hmm.
I want to feel comfortable in my body. If you have something that is making it difficult to tune into that body circle, which means that the body could also be out of alignment. But
Right.
say like illness or exhaustion or
Right.
maybe a long history of an eating disorder or so many food rules that you've been ignoring your body or your body
Mm-hmm.
cues. Like, do you even pay attention when you go to the bathroom or when you need to go to the bathroom? If you've been
Mm-hmm.
ignoring all those cues like that, like needing to pee, needing to drink water, needing to eat, needing to sleep, you're not used to tuning into those signals. So it might not be as quote unquote reliable. Like you might guess wrong. That's okay,
Right.
right?
Right.
You will probably guess wrong when you're using
Right.
this to start with. Um, but that's where the idea of like all foods fit and just letting it go happens, right?
Mm-hmm. Right.
And your brain can start to gather more observational data and say, like, okay, if I'm just gently observing this, neutrally observing this situation,
Mm-hmm.
that wasn't as satisfying as I expected it to be. Maybe you run that scenario in hindsight again through this framework and then find out, like, what could I have done? What were my other options? If it turns out the same, okay, that's
Mm-hmm.
fine. We don't get it right
Right.
all the time, right? We
Right.
just don't know. There's other factors that aren't represented by this information, and that's totally fine.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and sometimes it's just not what we expect. Even me, right? Like sometimes I'll go through this. I thought it was the most satisfying. I eat it. I'm like, nah. Oh well, that
That's
happens.
always a
It's
bummer.
one meal. It doesn't matter.
Right. Right. Well, yeah, thank you for kind of talking a little bit more about that, because I know, not everybody's experience is the same. And of course, you're coaching me right now, but I wanted to give you the opportunity to dive a little bit deeper into that. And I love how addressed my particular um, circumstance. But then you also talked about, like, sometimes it's not about like a disorder. It's just like you grew up with the rules that everybody grew up with. Like everybody probably grew up with different rules depending on their family, but we all had rules, right, around food and like a clean plate or not clean plate, all that kind of stuff, right? And so when we bring those rules into it, it kind of it's the brain, but it also can potentially affect the body, which I think is, and of course we all know that because we talk about butterflies in our stomach, and when we get stressed out, our neck hurts or whatever, so we know that things in our brain affect our body. So that's just a really concrete example. And for those of you that are going through this with me tonight, this is Shelly's way of teaching you intuitive eating, which she's explained before in conversations that we've had as internal cues, which is this, versus external rules. And so she's teaching us, okay, internal cues, what are those? And that is where we are going and diving deeper today in this workshop. And so, I love how simple this is, even so far. Just, it's simple, yet it's so deep because, we are complicated beings, and so we have all of this to ponder, but yet we don't want to overthink anything.
Right.
It's intuition.
Right. And to have the pressure of like, I'm going to fill one of these out and it's going to be perfect. And I will just keep this and frame it. And every time I'm in this scenario, I will know exactly what to eat. No, because each time you get into that scenario, it's going to be a little bit different.
Right.
Sorry
You're going to have a little bit different feeling in your body, a little bit different. Yeah. And or I'm like imagining like having a little like, okay, let me get a napkin so I can draw my 3 circles. And like, that's not what this is supposed to do. This is a framework that you can kind of just do in your mind.
Yes. Yeah. So
Yes.
it is not like I have to pull up my little booklet of points or like look through the app and find out what is approved and what is not approved. This is not another way of trying to fit yourself into a mold or a framework or whatever. This is a way of trying to understand the situation that you're in and what your options might be.
Yes.
It doesn't mandate any particular decision. So even as we start applying this to situations, that's something that I want you to keep in mind as you're doing this, is like, we're just coming up with information. That's what this is for. This gives you information so you can make an informed decision. So like when you take your loved one to the doctor, right? They're talking about informed decision making. They go through the options with you, hopefully. That is kind of like what we're doing here, right? We're going through the options here, and it helps you to figure out, what would you like to do moving forward? Okay.
All right. I'm ready.
Okay. So, this framework really works best when you have a particular situation in mind. So, I have asked Jeanette to think about a situation. I'll give you a couple seconds to like really think through a like very specific situation. The more specific you can get, the better. So if you think about like, the one time when you always seem to binge at night, or the one thing that you just get stuck every time and it's like your downfall. You could do that. Chances are it probably has a pretty high emotional weight to that. So you
Mm-hmm.
get to choose whether you want to play in that one first or if you want to do something different, because there are times when people get a little stuck when they're trying to think of the decision, or if they are very out of alignment, we might end up with a stick, like it just,
Yeah.
stops.
A
So
lopsided triangle.
yeah, you'll hear Jeanette and I talking through her scenario, and we'll give you some other examples. But if you want to do an easier one that you could probably do, it's just maybe a little bit harder, or you always kind of like it's the boring one to do, try the boring one. It's a little
Yeah.
easy. It might help you maybe get a little more information there. So we're
I'm
going to go
ready.
through specific information for the
Yeah.
specific situation. As a disclaimer, this is educational and not
Right.
diagnosing or treating
Yes.
anybody and your
Yes.
situation. That said, Jeanette, are you ready to go into your situation?
Yes. And I'm actually going to do one that's fairly hard,
Mhm.
um, depending on the season, which I guess is the point. That's one of the,
That's Yeah,
that's,
and that's okay because you and I are here so I can talk you through it. If you're going
Mhm.
through like watching this and you're doing it on your own, the reason I also say that it can be difficult to do one that is very heavy with emotion is that there's nobody to help you like
Right.
through it.
Right.
And so I can help Jeanette if like you get stuck, or if I'm noticing some really heavy pulls one way or the
Hmm.
other from those out of alignment areas, I can help coach you through that. But this is work that I usually do with somebody, so it's kind of hard to, to
Yeah.
do it just
So,
with a
well,
beginner.
and so this one I think will be relatable to a lot of people because I think we all like to some extent this is something that, a lot of people do. But I have the feeling that I need to have some sort of post dinner treat of some sort. Now, it does not have to be the same every time. And from the outside looking in, someone may be like, oh, look at her eating that healthy snack or not, like depending on, like, it doesn't, it's not always the chocolate thunder from down under from um, wherever that dessert is from, but like there's always like, okay, I'm done with dinner. Now I'm going to eat something else.
Mm-hmm. Is it typically
And
sweet?
yes, but sometimes it's more like yes, it's usually sweet, sometimes natural sugar, sometimes not natural sugars, if that I'm trying
Yeah,
not to be too
that part
specific.
doesn't matter so much
Yeah,
as the flavor
the
I'm looking
taste.
for. Yeah.
Yeah, it is a taste
Mm-hmm.
thing. Like it's usually a sweet something. And soft and crunchy together is ideal.
Okay. Yeah. Anything else
um
you want to share about that scenario to start with?
so I know about myself that I'm a routine person, and I know a lot of my self caregiver buddies we're very, because we have to be very organized. We do have a lot of habits and routines, which are great in a lot of cases. But for me, having a routine of eating a post, like a dessert for all intents and purposes, after my dinner is, if I'm not, it can be automatic sometimes. Like I don't even, I'm not really feeling in alignment with it. And then other times I feel perfectly fine with doing it. But it's not about like, um, you know, it's not like a snack, like later, like after dinner. It's like dinner and then I do the dessert or snack of some sort. So it's not a hunger thing. It's more of like it's goes with the dinner as part of it. But it's not dinner. I don't know. Like it has to be on a separate situation or a separate plate or whatever. Yeah, it can vary in size. It can vary, but there's this component of, I feel like it's almost like a habitual something that is, I feel sometimes like, why are you doing this? And then other times I'm like, I know why, just depends. So
Yeah.
I thought that would be so almost every night, that's a scenario I encounter.
Great. Okay.
Is that a good
This is a
one?
great example.
Okay, good.
And thank you for sharing. Here's how I want to address this one. I want to ask you some questions to help you fill in each of those situations.
Mhm.
But before we actually write down in our framework, I'm going to ask you some of the information that you're going to need so that we have the facts and the situations for those frameworks. So if
Okay.
you want to, you could write it on the outside of
Right.
the circles.
Okay.
Next to each one. So you already mentioned that you want the taste of something sweet
Mhm.
and the texture of something soft and crunchy.
Mhm.
Right? So that's the tongue. So those kinds of things you could write over in the tongue situation if you wanted to. People following along, if you want to practice with this scenario, that you can do that too. If you're imagining yourself in this situation, put whatever your imagination things or your actual experience is in that particular one. And we're going to move on with Jeanette's example. But so for the tongue information, like the data in the situation, you're looking for sweet, soft, and crunchy.
Mhm.
Yeah. And you don't, let's move to body.
Okay.
You've noticed that it's not usually hunger,
No.
right? So that's some information. You're not hungry necessarily based on whatever your known hunger signals are.
I'm usually not too full either. Like I'm not like I'm not uncomfortable in any way.
Okay.
So I'm neither hungry
Neither
nor
hungry nor full.
yeah.
Okay. Are you just the absence of hungry? Do you know what I mean? Like there's a difference between feeling satisfied at meals and just stopping when you're no longer hungry.
You know what? Now that you say that, I probably am, because usually what I've done for dinner, which this is a whole other scenario do later, but is I've said, this is the thing I'm going to have for dinner. And that's what I have for dinner. And I don't ask myself, do you want more of that thing? Do you want to add something else as part of your dinner? I say, no, that's my dinner. So it probably is more of like in between satisfied and just not hungry. So it's more on that end than satisfied to full.
Okay.
If there was a spectrum. Yeah.
All right.
That would
So,
be
I mean,
fair.
that's one example there. Like you said, it's already another whole situation where this framework could be at play, right? There's no checking in with the body at all. It's just the brain has decided this is enough, and that's what you're getting. And that's the end. And so now, afterwards, right, we're in this situation where we're working with, and your body might be like, yeah, I kind of would like some more now.
Right.
We're not quite satisfied, right? So that's good information. It seems like you want to feel satisfied. Is that true? Does that feel true in this situation?
Well, when you were talking about this earlier and you said satisfied or comfortable, I think, and this may tip over into the brain, which I know you're like, you're teaching it. Stop it. It's my line. But, but cause like, I want to say, well, I really just want to be comfortable in my body, which sometimes is part of what's going on in my brain.
Tell me more.
I would say, so like, I feel like it's more than just like, I feel like sometimes being comfortable in my body is more about being comfortable how I'm thinking about my body than how I'm feeling in my body is the way and I'm just, guys, if I'm just coming up with this, y'all, this is not pre-planned. Um, but as I'm talking to her and I'm thinking about these three components, I really am thinking, maybe what I thought was being satisfied or being full is really just being not hungry. What I thought of as being satisfied is really just trying to be comfortable. And so having those And then what I thought was being comfortable is really just thinking in my brain about being comfortable. So that's where my brain is walking through this.
And it's fascinating that you said that, because that's where I was going next. Because I heard a lot of out of alignment brain talking when
Right.
you were sharing about what was happening. It wasn't so much the facts of what was happening, it was your interpretation of those facts that was happening. You could hear the
Yes.
judgment on
Right.
yourself about that you were in this routine, or that this was habitual, and that you always had to have a treat. Even our language around this, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's a treat. Why not call it a dessert? Why not?
Yeah.
You only called it that once, but you called it treat multiple times. Is it a history thing? Like, does dessert sound scary? Would that
I
impact
think
the
for
feeling of
me,
hunger?
dessert means like um some like it is more formal. So for me, it was like treat is more informal. Is the way
Okay.
as was my if I had to define it, I'd like treat dessert sounds more like something a
Sitting
la
down for
mode
cake.
or yeah,
Yeah.
cake or pie or and it's like, well, I mean, it may be, but it also might just be a banana. It just depends.
Okay. And
A
does a
banana with
banana
something
actually
crunchy
feel
on it.
like a treat?
It depends on the day.
Hmm.
It probably also depends on what's going on in my brain.
Okay.
But sometimes yes. And sometimes, it's like banana with, crunched up cereal and, something like
Uh-huh.
that. Because I got it. This is the soft and the crunchy
Yeah.
and sweet.
So it's okay, right? It really depends on the person. Sometimes I hear people use the word treat and they mean that there's a undeserved nature to it.
Right. Or it's
That
a reward,
it's a
like a dog
reward,
treat.
or this is something that I don't deserve, and so if I eat it all the time or every day or whatever, I should feel guilty about, because you
Right.
don't get treats all the time, right?
Right.
So if that's coming up for you, great, something to notice. If it's not, totally fine. Keep using that. That's fun, right? Treats are fun. Like, we like that.
Well, and I think what you just said is interesting. So I don't feel like what I'm eating is the bad thing. It's that I'm eating it every day.
Okay, there we go.
Because it's, I feel like, yeah, I feel like it's more about like it must not be intuitive if you're doing it every day. Therefore, you're not into an intuitive eater.
Do you go to the bathroom every day? Like, of
Yes.
any sort? You go to the bathroom every day, right?
Yes.
Okay. And do you breathe every day?
Yes.
Okay. Do you wake up every day if you've gone to sleep?
Yes.
So far, right? Okay, great.
Yes. So far. Praise the Lord.
Repeated things do not automatically become a habit that we have to get rid of, right?
Okay.
Something habitual does not mean it's something bad.
Right.
And I'm not even talking about, well, that's true because these are good habits. No, I'm talking about there are just things that happen on a regular basis, like eating, like breathing, like going to the bathroom, that are just a part of living, right? And so just because something happens every day doesn't mean that it's bad or wrong, or that you have to stop it, or
Gotcha.
even that it's habitual. Like, it could be, right? We'll get into that. But I think automatically to say that just because I'm doing this every day means I'm totally brainless about it and I must stop it, or bring so much intention that I have decided this is an intentional choice and stick it to the diet world, right? Like,
Right.
it doesn't have to be that drama. It can just be, I ate this food. And yeah, some days it's like I didn't really think about it. This was just what happened. And other days it was like, oh, this totally hits a spot, right?
Right.
And it's okay. You don't get all this upset about that you ate dinner, right?
No,
But you did
not
that
usually.
every day. So there's something different. It is about the what you ate. It's there's something different about the treat and the dessert, and it's not just you. This is like, I hear it all the time, right? We have been
Right.
taught that desserts are bad. That
Right.
desserts are sometimes food. That desserts are not part of dinner.
Right. So like you should eat dinner and then,
right?
yeah, whatever it is, whether it's a savory, whether it's chips or a savory, whatever after dinner, that snack, that thing that you have after dinner
Yes.
is the bad thing.
Because you've already decided in your brain that dinner ended when you finished that food then that you had decided before, but without checking on your body, right? Like
right.
You've already decided this is the end of dinner. But
right.
Who says dinner has to end there?
right.
Where did you get that information?
Well, yeah, because like hobbits have breakfast and then second breakfast. So why can't we have a second dinner? Or just continue dinner?
Continue dinner. Who gets to decide what dinner contains?
Right. And also to your point, I can also have dessert. It can also be dessert.
It can also just be dessert. Yeah.
Yeah.
yeah. And you could decide that dessert is potato chips today. Or you could decide that, no, I'm only really going to use the word dessert when it's sweet, but sometimes I'll also want something extra after dinner. Totally fine. Or you could just say, you know what? Ice cream is part of dinner. Great. Also great.
Let's start that trend.
Yes. It's getting past the, like, there's a special category of food that can only be eaten under certain circumstances when there's a birthday party and I'm feeling my best. And, other people are doing it too.
Right.
And I haven't done it for the last 20 days or whatever.
Right. Yeah.
No.
All the parameters. right.
All the parameters. Those are all brain, by the way. Like,
right.
If you haven't realized this already, we are firmly in the brain category.
Yes.
We have left behind anything that the body is telling us.
Right.
Right? We're looking at the brain now, unless we're talking about, I really want. That's why I started with the tongue, because you really like this food. And part of this rules and all this drama around what we can and can't eat at certain times overrides and makes it not okay that we have preferences.
Yeah.
And that's really sad, isn't it? Like, It's kind of fun to have preferences. It's kind of fun to say, like, I actually have something I want. I think it would be great if I had whatever, right? I feel like I'm in the mood for whatever. It doesn't mean we're always going to get it, but it's kind of fun just to recognize ourselves and our preferences in some way. And it can actually be the first, like you were talking about, sometimes when you have more peace with food, you get more peace with other things in your life and yourself, because it's all transferable. When we have more time and intention, when we're recognizing what we want, it can be the first steps to recognizing what we need, right? Like, oh, I would love to have a space, just like some space in my brain. Great. Okay. What do you need to make that happen? Right. Or I would love 10 extra minutes of sleep.
Yeah.
What do I need to make that happen? Or what do I need? I would love to have a dessert, something sweet, whatever. Great. What would be satisfying? You can start with those questions, right? You can start asking yourself more questions to make those more possible, or to see if it is possible. Like, I would love to have the dessert that I had in Italy. I've never been to Italy, but like this came up with the client. That's why I use this example. She's like, well, what if I want the dessert I had in Italy? Well, sometimes we want things we can't have right now. Right? But you want it, and acknowledging the thing that you want can be very special and honoring to ourself in that moment, right? To acknowledge and not just be like, you shouldn't do that. That's horrible.
Well, what I hear too in all that we're talking about, because like we're working through these, we haven't even gotten to actually putting this stuff into place, and see how much time and energy, as I'm thinking about my scenario that I'm going through. And if you can imagine every time, like whatever that scenario is, maybe, for me, I might have one or two scenarios a day that make me have to do this kind of, where I'm having this think, part of what we're talking about in this workshop is finding that energy that we want. And really it's about, your brain is burning energy by thinking about all the things. And you have a lot as a caregiver to think about. You're thinking about all of the responsibilities, all the to-do list, all of everything. And so if you can let go of all of the guessing, second guessing, rewinding, playing it again, and then that guilt that comes sometimes when we feel like we've made the quote wrong decision, like we go ahead and make a decision because we have to. And then it's like, oh, we made a mistake. We're wrong. We're stupid. We'll never do that again. And then that's we carry that guilt. That's just burnt energy. We're just burning energy that we could use to care for ourselves, care for our loved ones, make other decisions. And so, that's what I'm really compelled by this whole process of tongue, body, brain alignment, is because it frees up your mind to think about the things that you enjoy, or the things that, need your brain to be thinking about them, So as caregiver, like I'm in a caregiving situation right now where there are big decisions I'm making like on an hourly basis. And it's like nice to not have to have that, constant train going on in the back of my head, like just careening down the mountain of what should I eat? Did I eat the right thing? Should I eat some more? Should I not eat? And so I really love that we're walking through this. And so I'm hoping so far everybody's finding it very helpful. So, okay, let's keep going.
Yeah. So we've basically gathered the information. We might have to ask a couple more questions if we get stuck like filling out the scenario piece. But we've basically gathered enough information, because I'm not in your brain, so I don't know. That's why I have to ask some of these questions, right? If you're doing this on your own, you'll probably already have the information. Just ask yourself, like, what is actually happening here? And as you go through each circle, right? And so we've gathered enough, and you've communicated enough with me, so I kind of have an idea of what's happening. And that you get a little bit more clarity on what is actually happening, right? In each of these 3 sections, separate from each other. And then we've actually checked in with the body about what is happening on this dinner situation or post-dinner situation, because poor body gets ignored during dinner. So we're moving on now to the application of this framework. So the goal with this framework is, again, just information, right? And the question it's answering is, what is the most satisfying choice that I can think of, right? Using this framework. It doesn't necessarily mean like, what is the most satisfying? We're going to exhaust all possible situations in the universe. We are saying, out of whatever energy I have to put toward this right now, whatever creative process I have to put toward this right now, what am I coming up with?
Right.
That's what's happening, right? We're going to be realistic about this.
Like what is in my kitchen right now? I'm not going to,
Well, what is in your kitchen right now is a brain. So that's a great thing about the brain. So what I'm going to ask you to do is make this even more specific.
Okay.
So I'm going to ask you, did you eat dinner already tonight?
Yes.
Did you have your post-dinner snack?
Yes.
Okay, great. Can you remember, like, if we use that as an example, do you think you'd remember enough details to use that as your scenario here?
I think so. Because I was kind of like thinking about it.
Great.
Pre-thinking. Yes.
So we're going to
I'll try to be as raw as I can. So
yeah. So it sounds like the most accessible one to you, and how it might happen, like in reality, how this often happens, at least for me and for many of my clients, is that you will start filling out whichever one feels the most accessible to start with, right? Let's say it's tongue for this example, because I have a feeling it will be. If you then start filling out other things and you realize, no, this one's not exactly right, that's fine. You'll go back and change it. Okay. So none of this is set in stone. It's a workable, flowable process.
Gotcha.
So for you, Jeanette, I'm going to recommend that we give it a shot with tongue. And if you think back to right before, or like right after you finished dinner, as it was determined was the end of dinner.
Yes.
What, thinking about, right, like which situations we are in, what was your taste preference in that moment?
My first taste preference was sweet. I was like, I want something sweet. Do you want me to get specific about like what I actually ate or no?
Not what you ate. That was the outcome. So I'm really curious about what a possible situation might have been. You said you want something sweet. So in the circle that is just the tongue section right here, you're going to write something sweet.
Okay. And also soft.
And soft. Something sweet and soft. Good. Alrighty. Did you happen to tune into your body at all during this process?
I think I've that tonight I was still hungry.
Okay. Still hungry. Do you know where you were feeling that hunger? Like, were you aware enough that it was a specific kind of like location, physical hunger somewhere?
I think I really like my taste buds were like still like, okay, what's next?
Yeah.
Like I
Where's the rest
wasn't,
of my dinner?
yeah.
Who was this person who decided this is the end?
Are you kidding me? Yeah. So like I literally was like probably like still like even now as I'm
Waiting.
talking, I'm like my mouth is like like I'm starting to
food?
like salivate.
Yep.
Maybe I'm still
Okay.
hungry.
It could be. It could be. So in here, you're going to put hunger, right? How did you want to feel after? You said you wanted some more food, so you can put
Yeah.
want more food. Yeah. Was there
I
anything else
think
that you were kind of aware of as far as like the body piece goes?
not the body. The brain, yes,
Okay.
but the body, no. Like I do know that I did not feel in my stomach like I was full. I
Mhm.
probably felt like there was like I was more on the not satisfied side.
Great. So you want more
Yeah.
food and you want to feel satisfied.
Yeah.
That's what you're going to put in the body section, the body only section here.
Yeah. Gotcha.
Okay. Great.
Ta-da.
And everybody following along, we separated this out between, what like kinds of foods or what things to think, because the body doesn't care about that. It doesn't actually know what foods you have. Okay.
Right.
So it's just about the feelings here.
Mm-hmm.
So that's what you put here. All righty. You're ready to go on.
Yes.
We're going to do just the brain part only.
Okay.
So this, again, is the knowledge, the experience, the observation that you bring to this present moment. Give it a shot. What do you have?
So the first thing is I know what I have in my house. So I was thinking through the ingredients of my home. Mm-hmm. Do you want me to list them now or no?
You can list a couple.
Well, so I was thinking about the ice cream that's in my freezer. Mm-hmm. And then I was thinking, that's not going to be quite enough of like a flavor sensation. So I happen to have a little bit of blackberry jam left in my fridge. And I was like, I bet if I heat it up in the microwave, it'd make a good sauce.
Okay.
So I was thinking about that. So that was part of my process of like, okay. And then after I thought about that, I was like, ooh, that's kind of like cobbler. I bet if I dumped some granola in the blackberries and heated both of those up, then I would be making like a makeshift blackberry cobbler. So that's which, by the way, is one of my favorite. Like if I were going to go out and have a dessert, I really like blackberry cobbler.
Great.
Interestingly enough. Another thing I was thinking about is my time, because I knew that we were going to be doing this. And so I was like, well, I want to not be hungry. I want to not, I know that's part of the stomach. I mean, I know that's part of the body, the stomach. I know that's part of the body, but like there was there was like a time sensitivity to this. Like I want to go ahead and eat my dessert before I meet up with Shelly.
Great. Yeah.
So
that's your body doesn't know your schedule. So the schedule is firmly in the brain as well.
Right.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So the timing of like your decision on when to eat, that is actually not solidly the brain. So I'm going to pull out just so you can see how to do this, which pieces belong in this brain only category and which start to be the overlaps. Okay. So the brain only one, put ice cream, right? Jam, microwave, granola. You're going to add to the tongue section. Cobbler sounds delicious. Because that was more information that you had, even as this developed, right? Like as you were thinking about this, see how it's developing and you can put more information now. But that's also only here, right?
Okay.
It could maybe go up here, but I'm going to show you in a second why I'd probably put it in this category, not this one.
Okay.
But that one is kind of up to you where you decide to put that.
Okay.
All right. And one of your favorite desserts that can either go in, tongue or brain knows historically, like your favorites and the information, that kind of thing.
That's kind of where it was like oh, this is like a memory kind of thing.
Brain. All right. Are you feeling good about the solidly in each category things that we've got so far?
That makes a lot of sense.
I'm going to show you how to pull. These basically say, like, what would be my decision if? Okay. So this is basically like, what is my decision if I only use the information from my tongue? Like, what would be purely satisfying to my tongue without regard for the body or the brain?
Right.
Eat anything sweet, right? And soft, I think. And with enough flavor experience or something you said like that. So that's a tongue, right? So that's pretty much what we already have in there.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So what about the body? The body was pretty much like, hey, give me more food.
Right.
I don't really care what it is. Give me more food.
Right.
Great. Okay. If we were doing something that without regard to the tongue or to the brain, you would just eat anything because you were still hungry.
Yeah.
Okay. Great. You already have that in there.
Yeah.
With the brain, you were saying, I only have certain foods and I only have a certain amount of time. So what I'm going to do has to be with those constraints. And because I'm not taking into consideration what I want now or what my body is saying to me right now, like in this body and brain situation only, I might say something like, historically, I know I have the ingredients for cobbler. I can't make a fresh cobbler. I'm going to do microwave cobbler. Okay. Or you could just say, I'm not sure I have enough time. I'm going to do ice cream. Right?
Right.
So either of those could be there. And I think probably the first part was like ice cream. I have ice cream. Great.
Yes.
As you move closer here, this was microwave cobbler.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. This could have been more like one or the other. I think in the scenario, it's kind of hard to tell, and that's fine. Like sometimes it's blurry, like I said. And this may shift as we fill in the other few. But yeah, let's put it like somewhere here. It doesn't really matter. Sound good?
Yep.
That's our first overlap.
Yay!
Okay, so given, so we have the tongue, brain, body, and an overlap of the tongue and the brain, which wouldn't really care about the body, but like since the body was just giving more food, it's pretty close to the middle as well.
Yeah.
But we're just going to pretend, we're going to keep going. We say brain and body. Body just says more food. Brain says this is the food I have. Also, this is the time I have, right? What could have been a scenario where it doesn't matter if the tongue said, oh, this is satisfying or this is delicious or whatever, because we're not caring. What could have been a scenario? It doesn't mean that's what you did, but what could have been the scenario here where the overlap was, where we're considering what the body is saying and we're considering what the brain is saying, but we didn't check in with the tongue. That's this one.
Well, if I'm thinking about the cobbler makings.
Yeah.
And I'm thinking that I'm still hungry. So here's what's interesting is if I'm just still hungry and I don't know that we have the cobbler makings, like if I haven't gone through the process of going ice cream, jam, granola, I might have just eaten another thing that I ate for dinner.
Great. Okay. Yep. Because you have that.
Yeah.
And you're still hungry, and so you want more food. Would your brain, that could have been a situation. So you can definitely put that down in that little overlap there.
But your next question, I bet this is.
Would your brain have let you?
Yeah, or would it have been like, okay, great. Now that you had two of those, you still haven't had your dessert.
Yeah. And that's fine. Right. And then we're in another situation, which is also fine. Or we're in a second, and I have another example which might help with this too. After we do this one, just to give another way of thinking about this, because sometimes real life situations, they're great because they're applicable, but they're tricky because they're complex, right? So
well, I will say though, Yeah, I wonder though if this would like if I was not thinking about my tongue, I
Hmm.
need something sweet. You know what I mean? Like if I wasn't like I
Right.
wonder if I would have just been able to eat more dinner if it wasn't all about if it was I don't know.
Yeah. And so that was a possibility, right?
Yeah. Mhm.
Because you if and that's what this overlap is. It's
Mhm.
just disregarding the tongue, right?
Yeah.
So it's satisfying-ish because 2 out of
Mhm.
3 is satisfying. But you might have decided that no, actually, it's really important for me to satisfy my tongue right now. In which case, that wouldn't have been a satisfying solution.
Right. Yeah.
So we're going to move to the tongue and the body overlap, ignoring the brain, which
Okay.
can be tricky sometimes. Most of the time, it's just awkward. But let's figure out what scenario could you have come up with if you just thought, I want more food, I like sweet foods, and I like sweet foods, basically.
I probably if my brain was out of the picture,
Hmm.
I would have probably grabbed a different sweet food from my pantry.
Okay,
There's options in there.
great.
There's yeah,
That
cookies,
goes in here.
peppermint bark, all the things.
Yeah, great. And then you would have eaten probably until you were full, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so
Or
that goes in here.
well, if my brain's not in the picture, yes.
Your brain's not in the picture.
Yeah,
So
right.
this is a decision driven purely by your body saying, I want more food and I want to be satisfied, and your tongue saying, I want something sweet. And then that's there. So you're going to
Yes.
have probably second dinner helpings worth of dessert.
Right.
Yeah. Also, not a bad thing, right? Just another
Right.
scenario.
Right.
All right. So now we have those three, and none of them are like perfect. What might be the one that incorporates all three of them? Okay. Sounds like actually the thing that you came up with might have been the one
Right.
in the middle.
Right.
In
But
which case,
maybe more of it.
maybe more of it. Okay, there you go. Or here's something that we didn't think about as much is maybe, like you said, right? More food first and then more dessert. That dessert. Because you
Right.
did probably have time, right?
Yes. I
Okay.
did have more time than I thought.
Yeah. So what are your thoughts about that? Because you just completed your first TBB alignment worksheet. What do you think?
I love this because I really think, let me write down hang on, I want to
Oh,
make sure.
go for it.
Okay. See everyone, I got it all filled out. Ah. So here's what I really appreciate about this because, and I think I'm not alone when I say that it's sometimes so hard to make the decision because I feel like all of those things are fighting with each other instead of working together and being able to separate out the tongue, the body, and the brain, and then allowing them to kind of work together until they unite makes me feel a lot less anxiety because it's like they're not fighting, they're working together. We're trying to all come together. And that makes me feel healthier just in general. Like it's not an argument, it's not a battle, it's a conversation. It's a decision. And so that's what I really like about this is that just by the mere practice of doing it right now, I'm like, I am capable of making healthy decisions. I am, this was something that I already have all the tools because I have a tongue and I have a body and I have a brain. I have all the things I need to be more intuitive with my food choices. And I can trust my tongue and body and brain to work together. And so I think that is for me personally, and I'm hoping someone else can relate to this, that we can trust our bodies, our tongues, our brains to help us, that we have the tools that we need to be successful with our food choices. So that's very uh, um, comforting to me.
Yeah. Um, I know we originally were saying like, oh, we're going to go through, examples and situations and questions. I also want to be mindful of our time and of your time, viewers,
Yes.
because we are coming up, I think, to an hour
Yes.
already.
Yes.
So what I wanted to do, Jeanette, was offer you a couple of options. One,
Okay.
we continue into a massive, long, detailed thing, which is totally fine with me. Two, we break it into a couple of sessions. We can wrap this one up for everybody watching.
Yeah.
If you're satisfied with this amount, great. And then we can have a second video for you that really goes into the question and answer and the different scenario examples and things like that. Options, suggestions?
Well, I think we can probably, let's go ahead and go and like kind of wrap this up, because I think we do have time to maybe answer one more, like one of the scenarios that people submitted. And then maybe what you can do, Shelly, is we can, if you want to record a separate something on your own, and then we can drop it into the self-caregiver community for people to see, or something like that. We can work on that. And then of course we're going to let people know how to get in touch with you if they want your hand holding for this as well. And then of course I'll share some other things as well. But we were talking before we jumped on that some of the people in the self-caregiver community did have some questions. When I told them I was going to be talking to you, they listened to the podcast that we did together and they had some questions. And so I've already presented those to you. And so I'm going to let you kind of choose the ones that you want to dive into. And then, like I said, we can come up with a way for you to answer more of those questions or maybe interact with our community online as well. And for those of you that are participating today, if you're not already in the community, there will be a link in the description for you to jump in there, because we'll be talking about my experience and I would love to hear everybody's experience as well. So, all right, Shelly, what are you gonna which scenarios that we were presented with from our community are you going to jump into?
Yeah, I think the comfort food one. It's between the comfort food one or the errands one. Which one do you feel is more relevant?
So I really liked the question. One of our community members submitted a question for Shelly about how do you incorporate comfort foods into like a healthy lifestyle? Because a lot of times those things are not considered, conducive to each other. So how do you incorporate comfort foods or maybe traditional foods? Like I said, we're in the middle of the holiday season, but there's always something going on, tradition wise, birthday parties, holiday parties, things like that. How do we incorporate those traditional foods, comfort foods, but also have health, be health oriented in our life?
Mm-hmm. Great. So we're going to go through this same framework,
Mm-hmm.
but in a much more simplified version, because I know no details about your own life and I'm not asking any for this example. So you take your own, use this as a framework and sort of high level example and then fill it in yourself for your comfort foods and traditional foods. So what we're going to do is we're just going to go through a really scaled down version of what we just did. So if you're saying the situation is comfort foods and I'm trying to figure out what I'm doing. So maybe we start with tongue is the easiest because often we crave our comfort foods. So we're going to do this one, assuming that we're craving something.
Yes.
If it's not, if it's something like I know the holiday is coming up and I'm going to eat X food, that might change the scenario a little bit, but we're going to assume just for the sake of this, because it's faster, that you're craving your comfort food, whatever time of year you're experiencing this in.
Yes.
So you can put I am craving my grandmother's chocolate chip cookies. Okay, great. Grandmother's chocolate chip cookies goes in the tongue because that's what I want to eat. The body feels some tension and some level of readiness for food, not necessarily hungry maybe. And the brain is I'm really missing my grandma. And also this thing is just really stressful, whatever the thing is. And it's raining and I, have a lot going on and I didn't, haven't eaten really regularly for a couple of days. I've been eating, but it's kind of been scattered or something like that. So these are the scenarios, right? That's the history. This is your thoughts and your emotions and things like
Experiences.
this. And so
Mhm.
that's the 1, 2, 3, right? The outside pieces. If you start doing the overlaps, you might say, the tongue and the brain might say, okay, well, you want these cookies, but maybe I also feel like I haven't, I shouldn't be eating cookies like
Mm.
this right now. Um, Maybe I don't really want to do that. Let me, maybe I shouldn't do that. That would be like the brain going out of
No.
alignment. So what we want to do
Yeah.
is pull it more to like, but what I want is cookies. So how do we bring it into this overlap? Sorry, into the overlap. We
Mhm.
might say, okay, um, maybe I will just grab some cookies and or I'm maybe I'll make a bunch of cookies, right? Or I'll buy a bunch of cookies and I'm just going to eat them until I feel better because we're
Ah,
not incorporating the body at all in
yeah.
this scenario right here, right? So we're
Yeah.
just going to eat until we feel better.
Right.
That's not going to feel very comfortable, probably very quickly, but that's the scenario. Um, and then we're going to, maybe eat them a little faster than we should because the brain's out of
Mm.
alignment. Tongue and body, we want those cookies. We could eat some cookies. We're feeling a little tense. So maybe we will eat the cookies, but, maybe not too many because, there is some tension in our body and we're kind of feeling that. And maybe we're tired too. And so we don't really want to go cook all those cookies.
Right.
Um, but we want cookies. So we're going to get like delivery from our
Right.
whatever neighborhood
Our
store there
favorite
is.
cookie store.
Yeah. Body and we're not going to care how expensive this is or if that's going to
Right.
be the same kind of cookie even or whatever. We're just
Hmm.
going to order some cookies.
Yeah.
Um, the body and the brain, not counting the tongue, might say, I don't need cookies and I want something. I'm just tense. I don't care that I want,
Yeah.
right? What I want. So I'm just
Hmm.
going to try to exercise this out. I'm going to try to eat
Mm.
an apple. I'm going to try to just sleep instead. Maybe I'm just tired. Maybe it's after a certain time and I'm not allowing myself to eat anymore. Um, because I'm tense. I'm paying attention to that tenseness. And I'm not hungry. I'm not totally satisfied, but I'm not hungry. So that could be something that is okay to do, even in the
Hmm.
overlap of paying attention to the body. Again, not the most satisfying, right? So what I might choose to do instead, what might be more satisfying, is to say, okay, I'm going to maybe listen to some music, like my grandma's favorite music, or maybe a music that helps me calm down. I'm going to see if I have enough energy to make those cookies. If not, I might order some, or I might get some other cookies or something, or do something else. But since I really want some cookies, chocolate chip cookies, maybe I will. Or maybe I'll just eat some chocolate chips. Maybe that's good enough for the flavor that I'm looking for with the amount of energy I have in my body. And maybe I'm going to look through some pictures of my grandma. Or
Mm.
I'm going to think about her. Or if she's still living, maybe I'm going to call her and I'm going to tell
Mm.
her, like, wow, I really remember cooking cookies with you. Or I know, like, that was some of my most favorite memories. This is a memory I think of a lot. So you're going to get that connection where you're going to touch more on the loneliness, the connection piece. You're going to touch more on the tension piece. You could eat something here because you could be you're not necessarily hungry, but you're not full. And you wanted that cookie, so maybe you want some piece of that. Maybe you can do a little more exploring on what part of it is that you want. Like maybe I want something familiar. Maybe I want something, the texture. Maybe I want that chocolate piece. Maybe it's something else. Maybe nope, it's not. It's just the cookie. So you're gonna have to figure out a way to forget the cookies. But that situation touches on a lot more areas of our life that are satisfying than just one of these alone. Does that make sense? And so you can do that with any of your traditional or comfort
Okay.
foods.
So I'm really loving this because that was not what I was expecting out of that scenario. And like you said, you have no facts. You're just making all of stuff. So whatever anybody's chocolate chip cookie situation is, it could be totally different. But what I really loved about that, like we're talking about like the name of the workshop is finding freedom and energy through peace with food. So like it's food oriented. But in your scenario where you just walked us through this framework, the answer didn't necessarily start and stop on food, that we're tapping into the part of nutrition that is listening and then responding with all of those things in mind. And so there may be a food component, but it's talking to your grandmother about the recipe, or it's, calling your kids in and making the cookies with them, and, or whatever. It's broader than, should I eat or not eat? Should I eat this or not eat it? And that's what my mind is blown right now, that what you're teaching us is not it. Like I said, it doesn't start and end with food. This kind of goes into an everyday experience that can broaden our experience of self-care. Like, how do we tend to that tension and that fatigue and that overwhelm? It can be food, and sometimes probably needs to be food, but sometimes it's these other things that we can use the tongue, body, brain to help us figure out what is right in that moment. And I think that is my biggest takeaway from what we've learned so far. And I hope that as you're going through this with us, that you'll tell us what your biggest takeaway has been in the comments of this. Shelly and I are going to be in the comments. We're going to be looking and chatting with you. So we want to hear. And that's another thing, like, as you're watching this, whenever you watch it, if you want to talk to us in the comments, we're there. We're here for you to engage in conversation and carry this further. So I loved that. And I think that's a great place to end this workshop, because we have so many other opportunities for you to connect with each one of us. And so as we wrap up, I hope that those of you who have been a part of this with us, that you feel equipped and energized with this new tool to tap into the wisdom that your body already has around eating and leading to that greater freedom and energy. Because like I said, all this leads to more energy because you're not carrying all of that decision around, or indecision, or guilt about decision. But that you are feeling more freedom and your own power and your ability to take care of yourself as you take care of other people as a caregiver. And so if you want to go deeper into transforming the way you take care of yourself and have tailored self-care support, I just want to let you know that this is the exact kind of thing that I will be doing in my signature Empowered Self-Caregiver cohort. It is launching in January, but you can sign up whenever you're watching this. You can sign up to be a part of the care part. It should be called a care hort. I think I'm going to change the name now. The care hort. So you can be a part of the care. I did it again.
The self-care hort.
The self-care hort. That's what it is. So it's a 6-month journey that walks you through reclaiming the empowerment and the confidence you need to know that you can take care of yourself. We talk about nurturing self-awareness, resilience, boundaries, and sustainable personalized self-care. And this workshop is just a small taste of the type of training that the cohort is going to provide. After we have this out in the wild for a few days, this training is actually going to be in the resource hub of the Empowered Self-Caregiver cohort. And so if you want to learn more about the cohort, I'm going to drop a link in the description. You can schedule a discovery call with me. We can talk about the program, how it may fit your needs. I'll even do a little self-care assessment for you so you can kind of see where you are with your own self-care. Just head to the workshop description and set up a call with me. And also, Shelly, I want to thank you so much for giving your time and energy and wisdom to us and the framework. But I also want to let you share any last words of encouragement and let people know how they can get in touch with you as well.
Sure. So you can get in touch with me at my website. I also have my contact information on the worksheet that we're going to give you.
Yes.
There's a second page to this that gives you more information about how you can get a Get Confident call, which will, be you and me chatting and seeing if we're a good fit to work together, and then me pointing you in a direction that might be a good fit for your scenario right now. And one thing that I want you to remember as you're thinking about this, or, when you're going through whatever scenario you are in, whether you use this or not, just remember that there's no perfect way of doing it. So that means you're not doing it wrong. Okay. There's no
Yes.
perfect way of doing it, and you're not doing it wrong. If you're feeling like just having that was a great relief off of you, I think then, something that you could consider is working with Jeanette or with because there's just, there's so much more application to your eating, to your well-being overall, to the way that you approach self-care when you're thinking about it doesn't have to be perfect and you're not doing it wrong, right? Like so many more possibilities open up. So thank you for being on. Thank you for watching. You're not doing it wrong.
I know. Yeah. You're not doing it wrong. That's the takeaway. You're not doing it wrong. When we spoke and we talked about, I said, I'm not intuitive yet. I'm intuitive-ish. And you were like, nope, that's it. So yes, that's something that I teach in my cohort, is the idea that self-care, just like eating, can be intuitive, and we have the tools we need. We just need to learn to tap into them. And so much like tongue, body, brain, we all have all the parts that we need to take care of ourselves. And the cohort just teaches you how to do that. And of course, experts like Shelly will be offering insight and expert guidance inside the cohort, as well as her coaching that she does with her clients. Head to the workshop description to schedule a discovery call with me to learn more about the cohort that starts in January. And then I'll also link to Shelly's website and her other information so that you can hook up with her as well and join the Self-Caregiver community. All of that stuff will be in the workshop notes. Thank you so much. Take care, and we will see you soon.